Coffee and Cannabis.
Say, hi, welcome to Coffee and Cannabis, a show about writing, drinking coffee, passing the joint to the left. And is that it? That's your reaction? That's it. That's your reaction. That's a good reaction. I love it. It's like, you know what? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that lame joke?
I gotta cut out.
I'm your host, Clint Fleury.
I'm your co-host, Austin Campbell, who experiences network issues every day of his life in his brain. No,
that sounds
and in
right.
actuality.
Slow connection.
We're getting there. You know, one step at a time. 1 terabyte at a time.
That's
Sorry,
right.
millibyte probably.
Getting there. You're getting to a gig, right? 1 gig?
I'd love to. No, I got a good gig. I got a good gig where I'm working right now, and you know, I feel like, no, but seriously, how are you doing? How are you doing, and what are you drinking? Because I noticed.
Well, I am drinking some good old-fashioned Tim Hortons green tea. My wife picked this stuff up. It's not bad. It's, you know, it's good old-fashioned green herbal tea. My doc says that I can't drink coffee anymore. Or I can't drink much coffee. I can have 1 cup of coffee a day, and I do it in the morning. So, you know, it's a good time. Yeah, it's what happens when you get older and you get stressed out and you get ulcers and yeah.
No, it's from all those days when you were, you know, it's from your secret agent days is what I'm trying to say, and I know we're not allowed to talk about that or discuss that much on air, but sorry, there's a guy just across I can see him looking through his window. He's got the binoculars. He does that whenever I bring up Clint's secret career. So I can't talk about it anymore. But what I will say is it's taking its toll. Now you got to slow down, do some writing, reflect on what you've experienced, and you know, take that and use it. No, exactly.
What's in your cup?
What's in my kitty cup? In my kitty cup, we have a delightful double roasted Nescafe.
Ooh, Nescafe.
Yes.
Hey, it's good coffee, right? Do the robot.
No. Nescafe just reminds me of the first season of American Horror Story, you know, where that weird guy played by Dennis O'Hare, the weird, like, creepy guy who just kind of hangs around all the time, is trying to give the characters information about the house.
Oh, yeah.
Every time he always offers them Nescafe. He's like, Nescafe? And everybody's always, that's like a thing throughout the whole season. I'm like...
It's a nice trick.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird motif.
Yep.
But I think horror is all about kind of those red herrings and also just having that unsettling atmosphere by having recurring things like that where it's like, the hell does this mean?
Kind of stick out. It's like, especially even if like Nescafe probably, you know, gave them a payment for advertising. You know what? You have to give credit to the writer who has to implement that article into their script and trying to make it organic. And I was, you know what, and it reminds me of Paranormal Activity 6, The Ghost Dimension. I was watching that yesterday with my kids.
I've never seen that.
And it's not bad. It's good. It has a nice bookend narrative. If you're into the Paranormal Activity franchise, the narrative, you know, it's all over the place. It's the thing is that stuck out is the person who had to write in the gimmick of, okay, now you can see the activity, because like it's a special ghost camera that they're using that you can see the demon. You can see Toby now, and you can see the haunting and the activity as it's happening, and it's an interesting gimmick and how you have to write it in and direct the camera, because it's all divisive of the camera. So it's a good way, a writing exercise if you really get into looking at that film.
No kidding. Well, I need to get myself back on that Paranormal Activity train because I fell off after I think I watched up to I watched number 4. Like, that's how many, like, I got all the way through to number 4, but that's when I stopped because I was like, no. This needs to end.
It's yeah, pretty much. I mean, the first two were good, and then it's all backstory after that. But I mean, it's like I said, it's a paint by numbers narrative. It's a paint by numbers story.
But
excuse me. But it was a good ending to that story. I'm glad hopefully they don't bring that franchise back, or if they're gonna do something entirely different.
Well, and I have a question for you about kind of what we wanted to talk about today, which is, narrative setting and, atmosphere and kind of setting the tone through that kind of, whether it's the geographical location, the general relationships or feeling of that, place, because of those relationships, like an energy. And I feel like that's very much palpable and important in horror, is that energy between characters and like just kind of that hovers over every scene or, around a location, like we were saying. So my question for you is, when it comes to, I guess, serialized narratives, which is something these days we as writers are kind of forced to constantly engage with because that's become the main way of storytelling these days, the most profitable anyway, shall we say.
Yeah.
Do you think it diminishes or enhances a narrative's characters to be able to sit in that atmosphere, to be able to sit in that setting for a longer period of time? Do you think it enhances or diminishes, like, the quality of the narrative, the complexity, or does, and because I think sometimes, certain things have the issue of potentially being watered down, if we learn too much, for example, about something by exploring a location and exploring too much of its past. You know what I'm kind of getting at?
Yeah. As a narrative trope, I mean, ghost stories are very famous for in the investigation of their narrative, of like the backstory, right? Investigation is very, very key in to the beginning of like any kind of ghost story, right? And you see it in especially with like the Amityville Horror, which is a book I'm reading right now. The beginning of the story is the backstory of the DeFeo family and what the DeFeo son did was like killed everybody in their bed, and they're amping that history up. And then there's a lot of horror does go back into that investigative kind of place where they really need to uncover this mystery of why this place is haunted or why this place is evil. And I believe, like, with any kind of setting, your setting is most important, because you're dealing with a lot of issues like culture, for instance. Like, you're not just going to drop your characters anywhere unless you're dropping them into a fantasy world that extends beyond our Earth, our contemporary Earth. But if you're looking at like something like dropping them down into the city of Thunder Bay, you should you should know something about the culture of the Thunder Bay area, especially when you're building a family that, say, built the area and helped fund and produce resources,
curate
and get into, like, the building of that city is founded by certain people, right? And there's also founded by certain colonization stuff, right?
Yeah, the colonization is what founded this city, you know what I mean, as a military fort and strategic trading outpost, right? However, I think what's interesting and what you're getting at, not to ignore, I'm not ignoring colonization either, because that's important to, especially the discussion of setting narratives in North America or really anywhere that, indigenous people have been displaced, which is almost everywhere.
Which also becomes
You know what I
another
mean?
trope of ghost stories.
Oh,
The
yeah,
haunted,
exactly.
the haunted Indian burial ground.
And even just the ghosts of our past coming back to haunt us. You know what I mean? The skeletons in the proverbial closet. But I think what's interesting about what you're getting at too, and what you're suggesting, is there has to be this sense of authenticity. And I guess what I'm intrigued by is how does that also extend to fiction, where I think you still need a sense. You do need a sense of authenticity where you as an author are so completely invested in your vision and in this world that you're conveying to the reader, that you're able to lull them into it. You're able to help them or allow them to see what you're getting at. You know what I mean? Allow them to see your narrative.
I mean, you got liberties as a fiction writer to,
of course,
manipulate the world as you see fit. However, there is a sense of realism in any kind of even Alice in Wonderland. There, you went to this Wonderland place, and everything in there is an allusion to politics, certain political.
It's all symbolism.
Everything. It's just like it's an acid trip. It's your world on acid. It's our reality on acid. And I that's why I like that setting so much.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating, and the thing is, it's all symbolism, and it's all, I think it harkens back to what Rene Descartes was saying about how, like, nothing we think of or dream up is actually outside the realm of reality.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Pretty much.
And it's not supposed to be pessimistic. It's not like we can never think outside of the box, even though he is saying we can never think outside of the box. He's saying we take the box and we make it look so damn interesting. We do so many damn different interesting things with that box, but it's still the box. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It started out as this basic shape, and then we took it and we
expanded it.
We made it beautiful. Or we made more beautiful things with it. Or we
create our own universes, right? And we still create our universes.
Exactly. What was it I don't know if I can pull it up, because I should have taken a picture of it. I wanted to quote it from you.
Then just send it to me later.
Because you said, you commented on my stream the other day, and I thought that it was a really good, it was just a really good comment. So the epic Twitch quote is, "Creation is all in the fingers and the mind." And I think that was just really, it's because we were watching Marcus in Detroit become human play the piano.
Yeah.
And it was just a random action you could make. You had a choice, really, of different things you could do with him before that cutscene with him and his girlfriend. But, yeah, I chose the piano, and it was kind of beautiful. Kind of beautiful.
It just reminds me of just like how you can just create something, and you just sit there and do it. You can create music, and you can create anything. Like, you can draw. People just get up and draw sometimes, and just like they draw some stuff from their minds, and there is, it comes to that idea of like what is talent and versus what you can learn, and I believe that everybody can learn anything. You can learn to draw, you can learn to play the piano, and then there's people who do have a certain talent to be able to excel at these things, but it doesn't mean that anybody just can't do them, right? Especially with writing, it's like anybody could be a writer. It's just a matter of practice and keep doing it and being consistent. And when you come with something, when you think about narratives as a narrative setting, anybody can focus on that setting, focus on the setting that they want, or place their characters where they want to, and it is a matter of doing the work.
and I think it depends on the narrative and the writer, right? I think it's important to remember, especially in fiction, that there are no limits. However, you also still need to do your research. It seems, right? Like it's a balance, like for what you're writing, because ultimately, I think what we've discovered too is that you take so many different elements of what you know and what you're curious about when you're crafting a new setting, when you're creating a location or new characters and putting them in that location, giving that place history. It's all inspired by, what's going on out there, or what's happened before, or, what's going on in our own lives even too, what we've seen happen. And I count that as a form of research as well.
Oh, definitely. You don't discredit your own experiences. Anything that you can physically see, hear, taste, touch, that all goes into your writing. All of that. Well, right now I'm in pre-writing, so I'm doing the research. I'm putting everything together, and the reason why this topic comes up for a narrative setting is because I'm getting the house on Gore Street, my haunted house, my gothic narrative, my gothic story. Novella that I'm doing for my creative project is all going to be set in the Belasco house, which is I don't know if that's kind of on the nose, because any kind of horror writer that's out there right now is probably yelling. It's like, ooh, Belasco, whatever. That's just so common. It's cliche.
Is that a common name?
It's just famous for Belasco is just like anybody who knows Richard Madison's Hell House. Which has been, it's been in pop culture for a little while, but.
Oh, but you're using the last name of the people in that, or? Yeah.
I want something with a little bit more high society, because I like the name Velasco, and because I love that story, Hell House. It's just one of those, paranormal investigation stories, going into the house and trying to figure out why the rich man did it. The rich man's an asshole, so. Make the rich man in my story an asshole. Yeah, I just like the point is I needed to figure out the reason why my characters want to go inside this house, and I'm still trying to figure out the finer details. But Belasco is just a miserable old miser who just had to control and possess his wife and his children, and his wife killed him. His wife killed him. And basically, because he's such an evil asshole, he still haunts the house, and he torments his wife until this is the story, right? Torments his wife until she commits suicide, kills the kids, commits suicide, stuff like that.
Damn.
But this is just basically the story. This is the story that's fed the folktale. Because the folktale is one of the most important parts of that investigation is that urban myth, the reason why the ghost hunters are there in the first place. So I'm gonna get that. I need to get that all sorted out and written down before I can move on to more in-depth things. But I got the skeleton at least.
Well, because and I find, and I don't know if you would agree that this is the case, but particularly in horror narratives, right, I think motivation is always definitely something you have to be very careful with your characters, because it has to make sense, What? You don't want your readers to be like, well, that's just a mistake that, really just doesn't make logical sense, that they can't buy into. It's like, I couldn't see anyone making that choice. Which sometimes works, but it has to, even within the narrative, make sense for that character to be making an illogical choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And you get to make sure your characters are making logical choices. You can't make overly cliche choices too. That's what it is. It's you really definitely have to watch out for, and I'm gonna really definitely have to watch out for. Exactly what Paranormal Activities you keep telling us, why are you still in the house? Get out of the fucking house.
You got to answer the questions that not necessarily all, but you have to, because you can leave readers with some questions, but you just have to answer in horror the ones that are a little too glaringly obvious, I think.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
See, that's why I need you, like, especially with horror, I think what works great is like that Lovecraftian tone of like that ominous sublime that's still like, see, that's what I'm saying, like, this backstory folktale is the reason why it's gonna bring them to that story, but like the house on Gore Street is not what it seems. It's never going to be what it seems. And so I really, you know, when you walk in, I really want to set this atmosphere of hate and anger and dread, and just like this idea of it being this vortex or this gateway into like this ghost realm, this dimension of horror. Just I'm very influenced by the idea of like Twilight Zone or like the Outer Limits and these short idea narratives of like all this like this alternate dimension where all this stuff could happen.
Right. Which I think is wicked. I love that. I'm just dealing with angels that are hermaphrodites and demons at the same time. My angels were like, they were in same sex pairs. Like sexually, they had no reason to, like, they don't procreate sexually, so they just were all boning each other for fun, you know.
Oh, it's a good time.
But very often they chose, more often than not, to just be with the same sex, because they kind of, that's how their behaviors just evolved. It just worked out that way. So they're the opposite of us, and I kind of like that. Like, they're the opposite of our norm,
like that.
and that's kind of how I structured that. My back. In a sense, it's part of the setting, so because it's part of the history. So it's like,
it has its own story, right? That's when we talk about narratives, we're talking about the stories, and we're talking about, you know, all settings have their own stories, their own histories. So when you're crafting those settings, make sure you understand, like, you're telling it a story of the world you're building.
Exactly. So, no, I think that's a good place to
end off. I think it's a great place to end off. Well,
it's a good place to flip your table.
Into the digital space.
You kill somebody, man. No.
Well, tune in next time. See Austin have a breakdown.
Thank you for watching Coffee and Cannabis. We had a great time today. Please stay home unless you absolutely have to go out, and consume cannabis responsibly. Also consume coffee responsibly. Eat something when you drink coffee, please.
When you drink your coffee.
We both learned that the hard way, so it's okay. I can also speak for you. All right.
Bye.
Bye.